Hello, welcome to Calls with your Kinky Bestie. I'm Emma. I am a submissive and mentor for fellow Kinksters. This podcast is all about insights into kinky life and dating, sharing my personal experience and stories, and help share mindset shifts too to get you into a confident space, more confident than you are now. So get ready. It all starts now.
Hey bestie. Oh my gosh, this is the episode for you if you are single and you are so fucking ready for your kinky partnership, some sort of committed relationship, dynamic, whatever, and you like logically know the basics and are doing the right things of like you're actually searching and actively dating people and stuff like that, but you're kind of feeling stuck. I wanted to shine a light on an element of that you might not be seeing, and a shift that like I made in my own kinky dating journey that really helped. So the core, like the crux of this episode is I'm going to share like why befriending couples can be really beneficial. It can help you like start attracting people who are interested in relationships faster, even though that might seem counterintuitive if you're spending time with people that are already coupled. But so we're going to talk about like why that can really help shift your mindset and your attitude so that you're able to more easily attract people into those dynamics that you want. So we're going to talk about, introducing couples into your social circle and why that can be really valuable. And then I'm also going to share why only hanging out with single friends, like having a whole friend group that's single, can really fuck you over in this regard too, and might be part of the reason why you're stuck. So like all things, balance is really important. But yeah, stick around if you do not have any couples in your social circle. If you've got, can definitely relate to having tons of single friends who are kind of going through all the same struggles as you. And also like, you're looking for more, you're ready for something else, you're ready to make a shift. This is the episode for you. So why would having all single friends be a weird thing? Why would that be stifling you? So, okay, certainly if you are seeking partnership, you are going to have to be around single people who are available for partnership in a dating context. So you can't only be hanging out with couples. Like that's going to steer you the wrong way too. But what I experienced, and I think what a lot of people experience in their dating journey is really like investing and creating a lot of relationships with single people who are going through the same kind of stuff. And while that is like good because you have people who get it, which is really valuable. Like you don't feel left out or obscure, like you have people that understand and are going through the same thing. So that is really valuable. So you definitely are going to need some single friends. But the problem whenever you have like mostly or like all single friends, there's so many like tricky things that come up, but here are some of the really big things. The first is that it can reinforce your negative beliefs about dating or relationships, because people who are single also have something that they need to heal in order to get into a committed relationship. Like they have stuff that they're working through. And what you risk by being around a bunch of people who are like in that unhealed space, like going through those struggles, is like you taking on some of those same negative beliefs and struggles that they're going through. They might even be teaching you negative beliefs about dating or relationships that you don't even have. And they're just, some things that it can like keep you in this mindset that you're going to have to get out of in order to then go into a committed relationship. So it can lengthen the period of time that you are single, in that regard. So that's a big piece of it. Another piece is like when you are seeking out relationships with single people, like I know there are like single people support groups and like single people like online communities and stuff. And when you are investing into these relationships and creating them on the premise of we're both single and going through this thing, there is an element where you're investing into being in the struggle. Like you're investing into the identity of like, I'm a single person going through the struggle, who like, needs camaraderie to get through it. And while again, like a little bit of that is good, I want to caution you to spend too much time there and invest too much into that, because it is, again, like just reinforcing this identity of yourself. Like you're creating this belief of yourself that you are a single person. And part of getting out of this is like convincing yourself that actually I'm a person who is about to be in a relationship. And actually I'm a person who is like, my partner is seeking me out all the time. And so if you believe those things about yourself, you probably wouldn't be investing into and seeking out like single support groups and stuff. So that's a piece of it. But there is a time and a place for those types of communities. So like you can learn things from them, but you want to be careful not to invest too much into them. But instead what you're there to do is to kind of like get in, get out, and make it a temporary relationship. Like that's what those spaces are meant to be. So you want to get into those groups and kind of like learn from other people's mistakes, like learn people's blocks so that you can then move through it. So in order to do that, you need to make sure you are not like focused on like the complaining, the negative, and that you're instead like learning from what that does for other people. And like doing a bit of the opposite of what they're doing to work through it. And it can also be sabotaging your dating in like a psychological, well-being kind of way. Oh my gosh, I don't think that's the right term, but like, okay, so we know that, so many years ago in a more primitive human culture, like we used to rely on our tribe to survive, like, and being rejected by your tribe or your community might mean that you lose out on food or shelter or resources. And like, it can be dangerous, like to be ousted from your community. It can be really hard to like find those resources on your own or within another community when there were less of them. So it was a really dangerous thing to be ousted from your community. So when you create a community of single people, you might have this idea in the back of your head, well, if I become a coupled person, like if I find a partnership, then I'm no longer going to fit in this community anymore. And so I'm going to be rejected from it, which might be, your lizard part of your brain might think is dangerous to your well-being, even though logically you know that you leaving an online like singles group, or not even leaving the group, but still having single friends when you're someone who is now like entering a relationship. It can create this block where then you're resistant to do it for fear of then being rejected by these other relationships that you've made with single people. So let's pause here. When we come back, I'm going to talk about like how you get couple friends. And if you have negative feelings right now about having couple friends, like if you feel jealousy towards them or like resistance to it, we're going to like talk through all of that stuff and how it kind of works, and how to get out of those spaces, and how like get out of that mindset, shift it into something more positive, and also how to use that new energy to then get your own committed relationship. All right, we'll see you after that.
Just a little break to share that if you are loving this podcast and my content, if I'm someone you could see yourself working with, but you're wanting more direct support for your specific situation, I do offer mentorship. It's personalized to you, private video or phone calls with me, so you can chat about your situation and figure out a solution that's going to work for you. You can visit my website. It is kinkybestie.com/mentorships to see what's available and to book in your spot on my calendar. It's Kinky with a Y at the end and Bestie with an IE at the end. The link will be in the show notes, so you can check it out there. Back to the show.
Okay, we're back. We're talking about how befriending couples can really be supportive of your journey into finding your own partner. In the last section, we talked about how, your single friend groups might be hurting more than helping, especially if they are the majority of your relationships and you really don't know many people or have healthy relationships with people who are coupled. So now let's talk about why befriending couples can be really helpful for you in your journey and how to do it and work through maybe negative feelings you have towards couples now. Because you probably do if you're single. I know I did. Okay, so this beautiful thing happens whenever you are around couples for long enough and you're single, where you can start to recognize it as a normal thing. Whenever you see it and you're hanging out with it in a day-to-day setting, you're able to then take this idea of being in a relationship off this fantasy pedestal and see it in real life in front of you and realize that oh my gosh, well, this real relationship, even this one that I perceive to be perfect and at the level that I want, there are still flaws to it. So you're able to see the real of it and the humanity and get more realistic, which means that I don't know if realistic's the word, but it takes it off this fantasy pedestal whenever you're able to see what it really is. Even the really good relationships. I'm not talking about I definitely don't want to encourage you to find relationship to find couples to befriend that have really negative relationships or ones that you don't want. That's not the move. But if you're able to see the type of idyllic relationship that you want in real life, you're able to see it, in real life and off of the pedestal fantasy land worldview. So when you do that, it becomes more normal too. When you see your friends who are couples, you're able to recognize the similarities between you and them and recognize the values that they bring to their partnership are skills and attributes that you have too in your own way. And you're able to start to see how these types of things fit together, and visualize how this might go with your own partnership too. So that's the big benefit of it, is basically that it makes it more normal and feels possible for you and a safe and okay thing once you actually see relationships and are around them, which it might be hard to get that perspective when you're only surrounded by single people who are struggling through dating and maybe telling you all their bad date stories and stuff, where it just doesn't sound good. So then what if you feel negative feelings towards people who are in a couple? Maybe you have jealousy of couples. Maybe you, I remember whenever I was single, I had a couple Valentine's days where I was single and I would be so it was beyond frustrated. It really became an envy, jealousy thing where I might feel a little spiteful towards my friends that couldn't hang out with me because they had boyfriends or whatever was going on for them. So if you've ever heard of Abraham Hicks, yeah, I think it's Abraham Hicks. They have, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I could explain Abraham Hicks. I'm just going to cite them in this. I'm not going to explain what it is. But there's this book written by Abraham Hicks, and this tool created by them called the Emotional Guidance Scale. And it's a scale of 22 different emotions. And it basically puts them on a scale of high vibe emotions to low vibe emotions. And the idea is that even if you can't skip straight to that is that basically you can't skip over some of these emotions, and that some emotions are sequential and carry higher and lower vibrations. So I'll link a guide to that in the show notes of these 22 different emotions. But so I'll read them to you, the most positive emotions ranging to the most negative emotions. So 1 is joy. 2 is passion, 3 is enthusiasm, 4 is a positive expectation or belief, 5 is optimism, 6 is hopefulness, 7 is contentment, And then 8 and lower are like ranging towards the more negative emotions. 8 is boredom. 9 is pessimism. 10 is frustration or impatience. 11 is overwhelmment. 12 is disappointment. 13 is doubt. 14 is worry. 15 is blame. 16 is discouragement. 17 is anger. 18 is revenge. 19 is hatred or rage. 20 is jealousy. 21 is insecurity or unworthiness. 22 is fear, grief, depression. It's not always just one word for the on each stage of the scale, but that's what it is. So you can see how like they kind of, it's definitely a scale, and they like each point one direction or the other. But when I read those, like you can easily see how like you work through those things. Like it's really easy whenever you're at like a number 10, for example, like frustrated or impatient, and then work your way down to like, oh, well, I'm so frustrated. I doubt this could ever happen to me. I feel so discouraged because it's not happening to me. And then I'm getting angry because it's not possible and I feel discouraged. And then I'm going to start to feel jealousy towards other people that have this sort of thing. So it's a scale, but it's also a spiral. So it's like you follow one emotion into the next, and you can either follow the emotions going down or you can follow the emotions going up. But the idea is kind of that, like, even if you can't skip straight to feeling jealousy to suddenly feeling like joy and empowerment and whatever, at least you can get the next best emotion. So if you can get yourself out of jealousy and into hatred or rage, that carries a slightly more positive vibration than feeling jealousy towards a person. And then above that, like anger is a slightly more positive emotion too, because at least with anger, you're not like, because with jealousy, there is this little element where you're feeling like resentful and like kind of not wanting or not believing someone else is good enough to have this thing. Where 17, anger like doesn't have all of that weight behind it. It's slightly lighter. And then you can slowly work your scale up into just like, well, now I'm worried it's not possible for me. I'm disappointed that it's not happening for me yet. And just like you can eventually work your way up through the scale all the way up to, well, I'm going from being a pessimistic that it might not happen for me to like, well, now I'm just content with where I am. Like, when you hear from single people, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually really enjoying being single now. Like that is a perfect example of the emotional guidance scale of someone taking themselves from like really discouraged that their relationship is over or angry at the other person to like, well, now I'm content with where I am and like satisfied with myself. That's like at the middle of the scale. And then from there you can go up to like, oh, I'm feeling hopeful that it's possible for me. If I want it, I'm feeling optimistic that it can happen. Now I'm starting to believe that it can happen for me. I'm excited for it. And you can work your way up the emotions or down the emotions. But it's a really interesting idea, right? And like, I don't think this emotional guidance scale is based in actual science. I think it's definitely up to interpretation, and maybe you have your own version of like emotions that feel higher or lower for you. But it's just an interesting idea that you can work your way up or work your way down in increments. But what I think is so interesting is that jealousy is one of the, like, it's a number 20 and the lowest is 22. So it's like at almost the very, very bottom of the food chain. So it's really not a positive emotion. And the way you're supposed to use this emotional guidance scale is to make yourself aware of where you are. You're not supposed to feel like judgmental of yourself. Like you shouldn't, be down on yourself for feeling this jealousy, but it's just information to look at and go, well, jealousy is a really low emotion. How can I work myself up just a little bit up to the next one and start working your way up through the emotions so you can get to a more positive space where you feel like optimistic and are expecting something good to happen for you, because you can't feel optimistic and eager for something to happen for you and feel jealous about the same thing at the same time. They just carry different weights. So there's that whole emotional side of it. And basically just that, like, if you're feeling jealous or resentful towards someone who has the thing that you want, that is blocking you from raising your emotional state into someone who is like positive and expecting it to happen, or like happy with yourself, because you can't be both at the same time. So that's kind of like why you would want to work through it. You can also think about, like, if you're feeling jealous of someone who has the thing that you have, or has the thing that you want that you don't have right now, it also creates this other block where you're not going to want to be the person who has that thing, because you don't want someone else to be jealous of you. So that kind of also ties back into like why you might not want to have a bunch of single friends, because if you're single and you're feeling jealous of a person in a couple, you're not going to want your friends to be jealous of you and like feeling these negative things towards you too, because you go ahead and get into that relationship or whatever. So it creates this fear that other people are going to be jealous of you too. And it's just blocking you from having that thing, because you are also thinking negatively about something if you're looking at it with jealousy, because jealousy is objectively like a negative emotion. So if you're feeling jealous about like a relationship, you're looking at the state of having a relationship as like a negative thing, because think of all the things that go into jealousy. You're like kind of like blaming the person. You're like, well, this person only got this because they did this like thing, or they're not as worthy. Like you're looking at them as someone who has like lesser value than you, or the person you would expect to have a relationship. So it's like putting this negative perception of the people who are in it. So if you're thinking negatively about something, that's not going to be something that's attractive to you. Yeah. And then I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, those are like my big key points, is that like jealousy is basically blocking yourself from being able to think that that couple ship is going to be a positive thing for you to have, because you're not going to want someone else to feel the way that you feel right now about other people being in this coupled relationship, like that jealousy or that like blame or doubt or like all that kind of stuff. Or there's even survivorship guilt, where like if you have a friend group of single people and you're the one person who leaves that friend group to go be in a relationship, like you might be feeling guilty that you're the one who made it out, when maybe you think your other friend was more deserving of a relationship or whatever. So there's a lot of, these like negative, tricky social and emotional things that can start to happen whenever you align yourself with a relationship. With a community of people who are single and struggling with dating. So the emotions are going to happen. Don't be judgmental of yourself if you are feeling this jealousy, but like these are all just things to look at, like from an observational lens. Like now that you have this information, you can look at this emotional guidance scale and start to understand it and work your way through. But you can only start to work your way through those emotions once you're aware that you have them. And also, when you are seeing the struggle that someone else is going through and you're aligning yourself with people who are going through the same struggle, you start to believe that that's how it has to be for you too, or you just expect that to be like the normal way, which it definitely doesn't have to be. So whenever you align yourself with people who like their normal is having a couple in a relationship, then you can start to believe that it's possible for you to have a healthy relationship that you want too. So, oh my gosh, I feel like I jumped around a little bit there, but I'm hopeful that you got my big takeaways there and are understanding where I'm coming from, and we're able to take something away from this and are now going to be seeking out some couples to befriend as part of your growth journey into having the type of dynamic and relationship that you want. If it's aspirational for you right now or doesn't feel possible or whatever is going on for you. All right, we'll see you in the next lovely episode. Oh, and by the way, if you are not quite ready for like this part of the conversation of, couples and like being in a group of single people or whatever, like if you're still working on the basics of like getting on a kinky dating app, learning what you want and learning how to like communicate your boundaries and vet partners and things like that, I have a kinky dating course that you can go through that lays out all of these basics in a really simple, like step-by-step way, like down to just the basics without, all of these extra layers and stuff. It's called the Kinky Dating Kickoff, and I will have that linked in the show notes here. And I also have, there's a kink bundle coming out with Dom Sub Living here shortly. Maybe it's next month or something, but that course will be bundled with a bunch of other lovely kink products. So definitely get on my email list so you can be notified whenever that bundle comes out, because then you're going to get a really good deal with my course and then a bunch of other awesome community like workshops and courses that other creators in the kink community have come out with as well. All right. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, friend.
Thank you so much for joining me this episode. You can follow the podcast on the platform where you're listening to get updates with new episodes. You can follow me on social media at Kinky Bestie. I'm on Instagram. You can also check the show notes for any links or resources that I talked about in this episode, or just more ways to connect with me. And please share this with your kinky friends who could benefit from this type of content. There is also an option for each podcast episode to engage with Q&As or polls. So I'd love to hear from you and create future episodes around what you want to chime in with. So please check those out in the show notes too. And I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.